Hi, everybody, and welcome to this webinar in our TIBCO Labs Discover webinar series. The topic of today, or the focus of today, is going to be around real-time data provisioning using TCI and TCM. This is one of the new features that we bring to the project Discover. Is now we have, let's say, a deeper integration with the rest of TIBCO Cloud, and especially TIBCO Cloud Connect and TIBCO Cloud Integration, which are supposed to support a broad range of data sources and also touch real-time approach for doing things. So, as part of the agenda of today, we will start, of course, with a quick recap of what Project Discover is about for those who haven't catch up the previous webinars, and then we will go toward the real-time process mining, real-time dataset support. Sorry. So our vision for Discover remains the same. We want to be a SaaS as a service solution for process mining in order to empower every type of business user, so give them the ability to have find observables within their events, whether it's coming from a wide range of data sources such as databases, logs, cloud applications, and so on, whether they are on-prem or not, from IoT devices or not. It's not just about the discovery of your processes, it's also about doing the documentation of them. So how those processes operate between each of them, who is responsible and who is accountable for what. Of course, it goes with compliance because we are in a stronger regulation world and you need to have your process being compliant with the law, and this is what the compliance feature is about. So it helps you to make sure and to control that your processes are aligned with the well-defined model that you wanted this process to be, and to detect and get alert on any kind of drift toward those well-designed process. So the digital transformation does actually start with process mining. First, because you want to discover what's actually inside your company and how your process and how your people are interacting with each other and how those systems interact with each other. If your business processes are being enforced and respected. So the first thing you want to do is to discover them. We talk about process model discovery because it's a bottom to top approach. We start by digging into your logs, all those logs and events being generated by your system of information, whether it's coming from data lakes, cloud applications, and databases. Once we found out what the model should be for your process, we offer you the ability to actually document it, attach any relevant file and context around this process, and finally, try to predict and improve or automate where those processes could be accelerated by bringing some kind of automation. So how does that work? We first try to select a key business process and identify key business questions. Usually people start with bringing their own CSV or XSYs to get started, let's say, quickly in a self-service manner. But of course, that's not necessarily enterprise ready, and we are an enterprise ready solution. So we offer the ability to connect to customer systems and create views of the event using or leveraging TIBCO data virtualization or any type of source. And these days now, including also what TIBCO Cloud Integration has to offer and all the integration around real-time use cases if there are any. We do offer also as well a process control center that helps you to actually create those process mining analysis from datasets to perform those process discovery and create the various documentation and interaction with those processes. This is the global architectural layout of the process mining process discover solution. So as we said, it's a SaaS service. It's running in our TIBCO Cloud offering. So there is nothing for you to actually provision on your premises, and you can use it right away. Nonetheless, we give you a broad range of interactivity and access to your data through, notably, with the integration of TIBCO Cloud Integration. That helps us to touch everything which is based on TIBCO data visualization. That's more than 200 connectors and systems that are being supported there. but also everything through TIBCO messaging and TIBCO Cloud Integration. So you can fetch events in real time, store those events somewhere. That's what we are going to call it as being a kind of data set. And that data set is going to serve as the basis for further process analysis and find out what are the various processes. We bring two new concepts into Project Discover for that to support those new capabilities. One is the ability to create what we refer as being a connection. It's an object that you can actually reuse across multiple data sets. This is typically where the TCM, the Apache Kafka or TCM Pulsar broker are being located or being hosted, or where your TDV instance is being managed and connect to it. Those connections help you to actually browse the catalog of data that are being available, and from there actually being able to extract the data you need. So the way we do this provisioning is we stop and start acquiring messages. So as long as the tap is open, we acquire those messages. Once you feel you are happy, or probably based on a kind of schedule, you would like to snapshot this data to use them as a basis of your process analysis. This is an intermediate step for us because we believe it's also going to be an enabler for process monitoring, and we will come back later with a webinar later in the year about that. It's a flexible usage. We use any kind of schema. The schema is being guessed automatically out of the TIBCO Cloud Messaging brokers. And we can use arbitrary either Apache Pulsar or Apache Kafka. All those services being offered transparently from TIBCO Cloud Messaging. So you can have Kafka producer sending messages to Pulsar consumers, and both of them being consumed in a transparency way from Project Discover. We will go through a little demo right now on how this process discovery is done with TIBCO Cloud Integration. So let me first introduce you what TIBCO Cloud is about. TIBCO Cloud is offer you a broad range of capabilities, from integration to case management, messaging, process documentation, of course, the award-winning analytics solution Spotfire, or streaming analytics, or event processing. All those capabilities are offered using a single service, which is called TIBCO Cloud. In our case, we want to make some connection between TIBCO Cloud Integration, and integration is right here. That helps us to create small applications in a low-code way and to deploy those applications seamlessly on the cloud, here in TIBCO Cloud, to fetch events from some places and send those events somewhere else, or actually process those data in real time, filtering everything that your imagination can actually do. In our little demo today, we are just going to generate some basic event flow. So for a proper process mining capability, you need to have at least a timestamp where an activity actually starts, like my particular for this activity, and a case identifier to glue those activities all together. That what would constitute your process. So we have simply something generating a JSON message going through the Apache Pulsar producer activity. It's a drag and drop tool where you have access to a wide variety of activities, so you can interact with PostgreSQL, Redis database, Redshift, and so on and so on. This is not limited. You can also develop your own. In our case, we generate some synthetic data through a mapper, and the output would look like something with a case ID, an event time, an activity ID, and a score. It's just an arbitrary number, but it could be anything. That schema can change all along, but doesn't necessarily prevent us to do anything. Let's try to produce some messages and see if things work. So I'm just going to generate a little test of data. This debugging facility in TIBCO Cloud Integration helps you to actually debug your TIBCO flows and make sure that everything is working by looking at the various logs. Once we are happy with that, we are going to simply push this application and make it running So it's going to start and create events on a regular basis. We use here in our case a timer trigger. So every single second, we are going to generate a random number of messages for a given case. The activity will be random, but that should more or less give us a good idea. Let's start running it. So once the application is scaling and it's going to start to inundate TIBCO Cloud Messaging with messages, let's go on the Discover UI. In the new Discover UI, you have access to this notion of connection. That's what we were referring to. Here in our case, we are using this connection. So connection looks like this. You select your type of connection. We support today TDV and TCM, but more things will come later. So here in our case, we select TCM. You need a name for the connection, a description to make it self-explicit, a user ID. That's the login connection, the login credentials against Kafka on TCM, the password, and of course, the broker URL. In our case, this looks like this, and this information can actually be looked from your TIBCO Cloud Messaging screen. When you simply go to messaging, you have your statistics and the number of things you can actually support. As you can see, TIBCO Cloud Messaging is an enterprise-ready solution supporting a broad range of services that can connect. So all the information you need are through the classification page. You receive a configuration file. Those information in this configuration file is the one needed to fulfill the connection screen. There is more information if you go directly to the documentation pages. Okay, so let's try to create now a data set. We want to select TCM type connections. Next, we select our connection. So the connection is really the broker where you're going to connect against and retrieve those messages out from. This can be Pulsar based or this can be Kafka based. It doesn't really matter. It's TCM for us in our case. I select that. We auto discovery the various topics being created there. Okay, so you can see you can have topics that have various nodes and information. It takes a couple of time to actually start the Kafka client. So there we go. So this is the data being generated automatically and change and then we're going to this. As you can see, this has been generated times a day. Okay, we auto detect the schema. So the more fields you will have, the more fields will be guessed. We guess the type of it, if it's string or not, integer and so on. But you can always manually override it if you need that. Next, we guess the date time format. We usually do a decent job trying guessing the format, but sometimes you may need to help us by driving if the month, if there are some ambiguities between, let's say, the month and the year, especially if they are coded over 2 characters only. Next, once we're happy, we click finished. And the system starts to acquire those data. So this is the one status you will see is the status acquired. First thing that we do in the background is actually to connect back to the TCM broker and fetch those messages. So the more messages that comes into are going to be fetched, and this will constitute your data set. We don't support any dedication for the moment, but we will later. So this helps you to constitute some regular data set. Let's say I want a 1 week period, 2 weeks period, and so on by enriching the data set, which is ever growing, but we self-manage the growth of that file. You can create as many data sets you want against the same topic. That's no problem. We support any kind of conference. So once you feel that we have, or we should have probably enough message, let's try to put the capture and pose. When you do that, the first thing we do for you is to actually generate a bunch of data that are representative to this data set. So this data set is ready to use. Once it's in a ready state, nothing prevents you to start acquiring data again while you are still working on the previous snapshot of those data. There is really a decouple between the two, and that's not true because you can start storing your data while still capturing things without missing any valuable information or anything like that. When we stop, it takes several seconds because we have a time, a window, a frame to actually fetch the late arriving data. But once they are there, we make sure that everything has been treated in the right order and using the at least once semantic. Okay, should be fine. So here we are going to be able to create a time analysis. So here we can search against our CCM data once it's selected. We see all our data arriving frequently. Okay, and then we go next. This is all the events being generated. Remember, we generate an arbitrary number of data every 8 seconds. So this goes actually quite fast. And then we can start doing some kind of process mining out of it. Then it's no different than any other process analysis. Okay. Once this process analysis is going to be ready, you simply need to open it and then you get access to your data and you can start actually doing the documentation. If you want to know more information regarding documentation, I invite you to look again or replay the previous webinar around documentation. Let's go back to our presentation. Okay, so this is going to conclude our webinar today. So we've seen it's pretty easy to integrate TIBCO Cloud Integration through TIBCO Cloud Messaging with Project Discover. We are very independent of what you are doing on the TIBCO Cloud Integration side, so you can virtually integrate with anything that TIBCO Cloud Integration does support, as long as you are sending the data to TCL, to a topic that we simply can listen, and we will create the relevant dataset for you, and you will be able to start doing process mining. In the next coming up webinar, do not miss the analyzing process performances with analytics and process mining. You will have one of our specialists, which is Bruno Suller, on Spotfire and process analysis, and you will see what is you are able to do with the last analysis I was just about to open. I didn't show much up because all the interesting things to see are in the next webinar, so do not miss it. Thank you for joining, and see you soon.